Embryo Americans by Elizabeth Robbins, published in Harper's Monthly Magazine in September 1901. As we celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States this year, I wanted to incorporate some relevant stories and topics from Elizabeth Robbins' life and writings. This recording is of a piece Elizabeth wrote for Harper's Monthly Magazine. It was published in September of 1901 in the midst of a challenging year. Elizabeth had undergone her first rest cure on the Isle of Wight, trying to get over the typhoid she contracted when visiting her brothers Raymond and Saxton in Alaska. She congratulated herself in her diary for at least surviving the so-called cure, even if her health did not improve. Then she received the news their mother had passed away, and a week later she found out Saxton had ended his own life. The American-born and raised Elizabeth spent much of her adult life in England, and her writings frequently include sprinklings of European languages. This story is no exception. In a desire to leave her writings intact, the German language she incorporates in the story has been preserved. Most are location names, but you'll also hear two nouns, Gepäck, which means luggage, and Fahren, which means ticket. There will also be one verb, Schimpf, which means scold, and finally an adjective, Zweite, which means second. Okay, so that's Gepäck for luggage, Fahren, ticket, Schimpf, scold, and Zweite, second. When Harper's published the story, it included two fascinating illustrations by American artist Ernest Leonard Blumenschein. When I read her story, I see photos in my mind of my own travel experiences. As a teen trying to look relaxed as I sat alone at a Greyhound station. As a mom of 4 little people at the airport, dragging diaper bags and trying to keep them from climbing the walls or getting on an escalator without me. Even entry to a luxury cruise ship usually involves being herded like cattle through the gangplank. There is often such an undignified aura to travel that it's difficult to see the best in our fellow travelers. Yet, at the heart of it all, the gift of the innate value of each person remains. And for the 250 years of her official existence, America has been calling us to her. So here goes. Embryo Americans by Elizabeth Robbins. The Magdeburger Bahnhof, that dull and usually unremarkable railway station at Leipzig, was transformed. It had become a human anthill, where each creature, with ant-like scorn for proportion, seemed to be carrying or dragging a burden of Gepäck and progeny bigger than himself. I am pushed and buffeted, but the raging excitement of the motley gathering rouses too keen an interest to admit a retreat, and waiting somewhere else under less revolutionary conditions for my Hanover train. With difficulty I stand my ground, elbows out, awaiting developments. Many of the outlandishly dressed people have evidently already come some distance on a pilgrimage of supreme and agitating importance. I listened to the confusion of thick dialects, and noticed how most of the work-worn women are dressed peasant fashion, in fierce colors, stained and toned by hard weather in the open. No hats or bonnets, 3-cornered kerchiefs and shells on their heads in many cases, which coverings are being mauled and pushed down to the neck by the surging crowd. The German officials schimpf and rage. The women press on into the already overcrowded station in the wake of their menfolk, faces red and steaming, arms full of babies in bundles, little children clinging to their skirts. Oh, the small, scared faces. Husbands quarreling, screaming orders, and trying to keep their flocks together. Mothers distracted, many crying. Young girls with cheeks flushed bright at the adventure and eyes shining. Clothes askew, and sometimes torn. Little people losing their mothers. Mothers agonized about their children. It was a picture of stress and strain I have never seen equal. What was going on? I could not yet force my way to an official to inquire. There seemed to be a desperate congestion about the exit to the platform. Some of the people were too overburdened with luggage to reach, or at all events to get through the stile, and stood wedged till the ticket-takers pulled themselves through by main force, tearing the travelers' clothes in the process, and even in 1 or 2 cases denuding him, oftener her, of some cherished bundle, whereupon an outcry, much shimphing, and the property is restored. I have reached a place of refuge behind the ticket takers at the stile, looking, wondering. An old woman with a finely marked Hebrew countenance and terribly overburdened with spoil had evidently, before getting as far as the Magdeburger Bahnhof, succumbed to the nightmare and sought to drown her wretchedness in drink. Her eyes alone in all that throng were veiled and vague. She alone was not scuffling and pressing forward. The comforter she had taken under herself gave to her a solitary figure in the midst of the pandemonium, a statuesque dignity. There she stood as the people hurried past, she alone unhasting, cured of care, waiting with a dark and scornful patience for what might befall. The one steadfast point in the flux began to attract the eyes of the multitude. Gutter voices screamed at the old woman to move on. No echo of the den about her seemed to reach her ears. Still the people pushed and struggled past, catching black objurgation as they went. Unheeding, she was jostled and cheered at, till at once some sense of intolerable woe was aroused in her drink-dulled brain. She threw back her head and gave out a hoarse cry like an angry, tormented animal. The children clung closer to their elders. The terrible old woman was given a wider berth, and still at intervals she sounded that awful cry. The ticket-taker fell to berating her at last for an obstruction, but he had been wonderfully forbearing and patient with the strange crew. A little boy had now got far on in front of his family with a huge basket. The ticket-taker, of course, refused to let him through, and the boy, having fought his way that far, stoutly declined to go back and join the family circle. He stood there in the narrow passage, feverishly embracing his great hamper, while the ticket people swore at him and he cried lustily for his mother. "Where are all these people going?" I asked the ticket-taker. "Nach Nordamerika," he answered, dragging the boy and the hamper to one side. "Poor America," I said involuntarily, looking at the hardened faces. Yet there were some. There was a young mother struggling past the boy who had the wicker thing. She had a deal of simple, tender humanity in her anxious face. A baby on one arm, another child and a bundle dragged behind her by the other hand. The problem, as I had been for some moments observing, is how to hold on to your infant and your gepäck and yet present and take again the precious ticket. The young mother solved it by momentarily releasing the bundle and the child behind her and producing the ticket out of the sock of the infant in her arms. After it was punched, the ticket was safely tucked into the sock again, bundle and the other child clutched, and all safely landed on the platform. A young girl presently, arms full, flushed, pretty, smiling, not a finger free, held her ticket tightly between her white teeth. And so, with a little upward tilt of her chin, was it offered to the guard at the gate. When he had punched it, she opened her mouth, and he replaced the ticket as calmly as if all well-conducted tourists carried theirs as a dog carries a bone. Others, seeing this plan succeed so well, adopted it. Where it was evident, it fetched the ticket-taker in spite of his official calmness, and he took to making quick, laughing speeches when the girls who presented their Fokker and so were pretty and good-humored. As I stood watching this little gleam of youth and geniality lighting up a squall scene, I was startled again by the animal-like cry of the old mother in Israel, for whom it seemed the world and its kingdoms were incredibly fated. She had not drowned, but only partly deadened her disgust, and was moved to raise at intervals this unearthly, impersonal howl, for no reason that was apparent. The crowd was thinned, but just a dim sense of the awfulness of things in general. She was evidently like to lose her train, so she was cursed at with renewed vigor and pulled out onto the platform. In some odd way, her dark and finally marked face never lost dignity. She looked a moment's scorn on the people who laid hands upon her, and then, as though she had far graver accounts to settle with the everlasting, she lifted up that melancholy, awful cry. As she disappeared into the mob on the platform, "Mater, mater," screamed the small boy with the big basket. "We shall lose the train for America!" And he began to weep. Just then, among a lot of Poles or Hungarians, appeared his mutter, and the boy with the basket ceased to be an obstruction in Germany. In America, who can tell? He may take up the office afresh. No wonder that we over there have our problems. I looked with unwelcoming eyes upon those future compatriots of mine, and I wondered which among that dirty, ill-smelling horde were to be the future millionaires, governors, masters, mothers of duchesses yet to be, and future vice-queens of India. The sense of the modern miracle that America is moved me more than it ever did before. What a power is hers! What a digestion! When she can take such material into her great maw and not die of it, when of such raw stuff as this sweating an ignorant cattle-like crowd, she can fashion overlords and potentates. As I passed out, guiltless of Gepäck and not offering my ticket in my teeth, threading my way behind the mob to a Zweite-Class carriage, I felt with a kind of uneasy amusement that we were all Americans together. Only I belonged to the people who had been of account, and they belonged to those who were to be.